President Trump is ramping up his trade war with China and hinting the worst is not over. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court decided the Trump administration must facilitate the release of the Maryland man who was wrongfully deported to an El Salvador prison. Alice Barr reports from Washington.
A wild week on Wall Street, winding down with another downturn on Thursday, erasing part of Wednesday's historic recovery as investors eye the growing trade war with China. China this morning announcing even higher 125% retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods. President Trump with his cabinet acknowledging what he calls short-term pain.
There'll always be transition difficulty.
While insisting negotiations are going well with other trading partners who got a 90-day reprieve in punishing tariffs and suggesting China could follow.
I think that we'll end up working out something that's very good for both countries.
No sign of that yet, with the White House clarifying total tariffs on Chinese imports are now 145%, including a previous fentanyl-related penalty. The rift in that critical trade relationship set to drive up prices as small businesses, like this Utah hobby shop and its customers, brace for impact.
I'm a little nervous that I'm not going to get some of the product I ordered or I'm going to have to pay more for stuff.
The instability making market forecasters like J.P. Morgan Chase stick with predictions that the U.S. economy could tip into a recession. While on a separate front, the Supreme Court ordered the Trump administration to reverse course on a Maryland man who was wrongly deported to an El Salvador prison. After days of dispute, the High Court saying the administration must facilitate the release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, though the justices did not back all of a lower court's ruling ordering his retrieval, saying the White House deserves deference to conduct foreign affairs.
That was Alice Barr reporting. Some good news with a new report showing inflation cooled in March, though that data comes from before the trade war really started ratcheting up, with economists expecting tariffs to drive up prices once again.
This morning, the trade war between the world's two biggest economies heating up. China slapping a new tariff on the United States, raising the tax on American goods to 125%. With China one of the main importers of U.S. goods, that move is likely to affect American farmers and companies. And China's President Xi Jinping is now responding to President Trump for the first time, saying that China does not fear economic suppression, but adding there are no winners in a tariff war. It comes after the White House clarified it had raised tariffs on China to 145%.
And I think that we'll end up working out something that's very good for both countries.
The U.S. tariff policies for the rest of the world remain uncertain. The president keeping a 10% baseline tax in place, even as he paused higher tariffs on dozens of trading partners. President Trump saying he's punishing countries who he insists treat the U.S. unfairly in trade. But experts warn many of those costs will be passed on to American consumers. According to a new estimate, all the tariffs could end up costing American households an extra $4,700 in purchasing power. The president acknowledging there will be short-term economic pain.
There'll be a transition cost and transition problems, but in the end, it's going to be a beautiful thing.
Amazon CEO telling CNBC's Andrew Ross Sorkin it will likely lead to higher prices.
I think we'll have to see how it all plays out. But if you made me guess, I'm guessing that that sellers will pass that cost on.
This morning, Wall Street is set to wrap up one of the most volatile weeks in the stock market's history. The Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ all plunging again on Thursday, erasing part of the historic recovery just 24 hours earlier. The president downplaying the sell-off.
We're very, very happy with the way the country's running.